Hey guys, Stealth17 here. This time I'm playing the Busan Pocket campaign in Wargame Red Dragon, and I want to play this thing in 4 days. This is going to be the main goal for me. So what I need is to get a major victory or a total victory each time to really decimate those forces. First, I have a lot of units here in Busan at the start of the campaign. I have some defense on the outskirts, so I really need to plan what I want to defend where and how I'm going to do it. First I'm going to look at the maps. This one is a very open map and they're going to be coming in from Namgang. It's a very open map, which means it's going to be effective for tanks, possibly planes, not so much for infantry because there's not that many urban areas which I can use to put infantry in. So what I'm going to do here is put some tanks. Now luckily we already got a battalion of 8 M48A5s and 848 M48s, the standard version, the A3. These things don't really have a lot of punching power and they cannot really take a lot of punching from tanks. And on the left we have a lot of tanks coming in. We got 60 tanks coming in the form of 36 T55s and a lot of Type 63s. So what I want to do here is reinforce these guys with the K1 heavy armored battalion. These are basically the Abrams version. So these guys are going to the left. The other units I have up here are vehicles with infantry in the form of engineers. So that means a lot of fire damage, napalm launchers, artillery block and more napalm units. And I got an infantry regiment comprised of Yebigoons, Sochang-sus, these are the line infantry, stingers and recoilless rifles, and finally some recon units. This map is pretty urban. As you can see, there's a lot of urban blocks here. There's some urban blocks here, urban here, and this means that this is going to be a real infantry battle. If I look at what I'm going to be expecting here in Daegu, so this is the urban map, we got these F5s, this is a napalm bomber group. We got a group of fire supports, which means Shilka anti-air units, mortar carriers and more older anti-air units. We got the Sosang Pos, these are anti-tank units combined with the ATS-103s. Again, both are very lightly armed or armored so that I can take them out with the law anti-tank units I have on my infantry. Further, we got an infantry regiment comprised of a whole lot of line infantry from their side, a couple of Fagot anti-tank missiles and Strelas for their air defense, and finally they got a heavy artillery battalion. So what I want to do with these guys is really force them into the town, force them to come to me here, and possibly capture this town to make sure that I have a better defense and that they don't have to come over these bridges. So what I want here is to use my infantry and to also send over some bombers. Now we got 30 points. We can use these to call in some air reserves, and what I want to have are the F4DS units, because these carry 18 227 kilogram bombs, which are very effective against light vehicles and infantry, which is exactly what we're going to be facing in Daegu. So I call these into Busan. At least I'm trying to. Here they are. F4DS, and I send them to Daegu. Next we got in the north an armored regiment comprised of 8 K1s and 16 M48A5s. What these guys are going to be facing is another tank regiment, but these tanks are a little better because they have the Chonma Hos, which are pretty heavily armored for a 40-point tank, and some older Chonma Hos which have less armor and less punching power. Now, I'm not going to send 8 K1 heavy tanks against 60 of these vehicles, or 56. So what these guys need is my squadron of F4ES, which is an ATGM carrying plane. I sent this group to the north, and I'm also going to send this group of close recon convoy to the north. These are going to be the eyes of the operation, while the F4ES will focus on taking out the tanks. Then I have a special aviation regiment. This is comprised of SEALs, some resupply choppers, a couple of recons coming in helicopters, and we got AH-1Js, attack helicopters armed with Hydras, and a couple of tow launchers. Now I could send these into the left to make sure that they can do a lot of damage against these tanks which are coming up from the left, but I already have the heavy armor battalion for that. I can send them here, but they're going to be facing this group of fire support convoy, which means that they're going to take a lot of anti-air fire. So this is not the best place for them. And I could also choose to send them here, which is another open map. It has some urban areas where the SEALs could set up and put the SEALs in here, if I can get that far, but the tanks are usually spawning on the outskirts here. And I can use the attack choppers, the tow ones, to take out some tanks. That's what I'm going to be doing. This group goes to the north. And because their attack choppers don't carry a lot of missiles, this only gives me 24 of them. I'm also going to send this group of logistics convoy to the north, because they carry 2 FOBs. This leaves me with a group of the 161st Fighter Squadron. I'm going to use these guys to send them to Daegu, because I got a napalm bomber squad coming in here, which can really put some hurt on my infantry in the town. So I'm sending these north. And this leaves me with F-86Fs. These are carrying rocket pods, unguided rockets, not ATGMs mind you. I'm going to send these left so I can have some air support here. Okay, my defense is set up. Now let's see what the computer is going to be doing. So I end the turn. Computer starts to move in. And here we go. Daegu is the first battle we're going to be fighting. Now we don't have that many points in here. We got 946. They have 1488 before they get destroyed. So this means that I'm going to really have to plan my defense and use my air superiority in the sense of bombers to make sure that I do as much damage to their vehicles and infantry as possible. This is going to be a pretty tough defense because they're going to be swarming over these bridges. I have tried to defend them from this side, but they usually get overrun. So what I want to try to do is capture these buildings here, force them into a bottleneck here, do the same thing here on these crossroads, and capture this town here to the north to make sure that they have to go through this line or possibly through here if they want to get to this capture zone in Yongdek. Going to ignore this Busan zone because it doesn't give me any points, so that doesn't need any resources at this moment. Let's start out with putting a command vehicle in here, put a command vehicle in the back here. Okay, so I could use the recoilless rifles to put some anti-vehicle capability, but these have a range of 1400 meters, which means they're best used in open areas. And if I put infantry in here, that's not really an open area, so I'm just going to be using the standard infantry for that. Going to send 2 groups of 3 out there, and 2 groups of 3 to the north to capture these 2 zones. Then I have 1 group of 3 here to defend this area, and 1 group of 3 here. Now I want to put some recoilless rifles here to the north, because this is an open area where I can take out the vehicles. I want to have a capture vehicle or a CV in here. It's going to be slightly in cover, but make sure it doesn't get spotted. And for the rest I want 2 F-4DS's on the standby to make sure that I can immediately start focusing fire on the vehicles which are going to be swarming these bridges. Next, I want some defense here in this zone because sometimes they try to flank around here and here. For this I'm going to be using some recoilless rifles, and I'm just going with 3 squads in here. Leaves me 5 points, so I cannot buy anything else at this point. So let's start the battle and see what happens. Unload these guys, move up, send these guys across the bridge. The moment they get there, I want them to unload, so shift, unload, and hold shift, move back with move fast. Same goes for these guys. Unload, move fast, and get out of here. Finally in the north, move fast here, unload, move fast, get back over the bridge. And these guys move fast into these buildings, unload, get back. Now here we are. We can see a lot of vehicles coming over here, so I'm going to do 2 bombing runs on this area. Call in an F5. Oh, sorry, I didn't bring those in this match. Here come the bombers. And just watch how many points they're going to be racking up. Now I know that here is a lot of a lot of artillery. Probably mortar carriers, since the rate of fire is pretty high. So I call in an F40S and attack them on the ground here. These infantry units didn't go into buildings, which is pretty silly of them. And right now it's just trying to get as many points as possible here. There goes the artillery. And right now I want to be saving up for another bomber to make sure I can take out these vehicles. Because the machine guns on them are starting to chew up my infantry pretty good here. Somehow they managed to take up my command in Bravo already. Now most of these guys are panicked or stunned, which is good news because that means they're going to be a lot less effective. Up here in the north we got a defense set up with the recoilless rifles and the Sojing Sus. And right now we already have 70% of the capture zones, or the destruction points. They're not doing anything in this flank, which is good news for us. And I'd really like it if I could take down this command vehicle, but I don't have any bombers or anything that can touch them right now. What I do have is a lot of fighting on these flanks. And somehow these infantry units are still alive, even after all the onslaught they're taking. This flank is dying down a little, so I'm going to move up these units and force them to destroy some vehicles. Unfortunately, the infantry thinks it's a good idea to go over the beach right next to these vehicles, which is probably the worst decision of their lives. In the meanwhile, we got another bomber, so I'm going to send it after this cone, and they're going to come in from the right. We got some anti-air units here, so prodding in bombers from now on is going to be difficult. This should net me another 100 points. And now we're going to do another bombing run on these ZSUs, because they're not that heavily armored. Meanwhile, we're getting napalmed here, so I'm pulling back this infantry. They've gained quite a bit of experience, which means that they're going to be very effective the next match. And that's it. In 3.5 minutes I destroyed 1400 points worth, and that got me a total victory. My losses were 1 CV, 5 infantry units, and that's it. Well, on their side they lost 29 infantry units, 1 command vehicle, a lot of anti-tank units, a lot of the VTT support units. These were the mortar carriers I destroyed. They lost 3 of their recon units. They lost 4 of their anti-air units, and they didn't lose any of their planes. So this means I have really a step up in front of them now. Next, they're engaging Uichang. This is going to be a very easy battle, because they're engaging with just 1 infantry regiment. They're going to start here, while I have all of these zones. They only have Strelas, some recoilless rifles with a range of 1000, and for the rest they got low range infantry. They got some recon units, again with low range, which means that I'm going to be deploying these kind of tanks, or even these, the very cheap ones, because I can just swarm this infantry, hopefully take out their command vehicle, and send them back on their way into North Korea. So let's get to it. Okay, so here we are. This is the map we're going to be facing. We got all the blue zones, which means that we can spawn some tanks right at these bridges. So that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. I want a lot of these cheap tanks, so I'm going to send them out in groups of 3. 3 on this bridge, 3 here, 3 here. Going with another group of 3 on this side. And since these guys have very poor optics, that means they're almost blind, I need some sort of unit to scout for them. And the best unit I have, unfortunately, is infantry with their medium optics. So I'm going to send one of these groups with each of them, unload the infantry and use them as spotters. I also need to set up my capture zones. I got one command infantry here. I want to put that in, not in Busan, but in Uichang, because this zone can allow me to call in air units and land units and gives me 3 points. This zone is the same, but my resupply lines are going to be way longer and it doesn't give me as many points. I also have another command vehicle, which is a command tank. I'm going to put that here in the forest, and I want to put another command tank in the back of Busan so that I get as many points as possible. Now in this zone I also call in the F-86Fs, and I want to use these units to suppress infantry. They're only 65 apiece, so I'm going to call in 3 of these. I still have points left, so I'm going with another group of tanks, 3 more on this side, and I only got 1 of them left by now, so I'm going to delete this group and make that a group of 4. Now normally I wouldn't recommend pushing in groups of 4 tanks, but in this case it's possible because they don't have anything that can really touch our tanks at range. The best range they got is 1400 and our tanks have a range of 1900. The only thing that's going to be important is that they need to see them. We also have some Hellcats we can call in, M36s. These are very good units. I don't have the same speed as the regular Hellcat, unfortunately, because those go 110 off-road. But I could send in a couple of these as fire support units to go along with the tanks. Okay, that's my attack setup. Let's get to it. Unload these guys. Send these guys in an attack move across the bridge. And I put this last group here on the crossroads so that they don't push out here and try to go over these bridges. I got all the zones here. I unload my infantry here and I immediately start spotting units. Now make sure that this infantry doesn't take fire, that's the important part here. But what we can do is send in the F-86Fs we have here. So I'm going to manually send them in an attack run. And I want these tanks and the sluggers to do some damage. So we took some stinger fire from one of these villages. Keep pushing with the tanks. And the first of the vehicles start dying already. Push in from the side here. I don't really get too close to this town because my tanks, see, they're already at 14 or 1000, which means that they're right on the outskirts of their anti-tank range. So I really shouldn't go much further than this. I'm going to surround this town, put my sluggers all around it, and I'm going to send this group up here to the north to come in from the back, while these tanks are going to lock down the front. We can spot some more infantry coming in from the north, and somehow they're moving their command vehicle, so all we need to do now is find it. This battle really shows you the importance of recon, because if I had had a recon chopper, that would really be a lot more effective than the recon units I have now. I managed to take out one of my F-86s, because I was a little too careless with the stingers which they still had in that town. So right now I'm just going to focus on destroying vehicles. I got a group of vehicles and infantry here, so that's a perfect target for my F-86F. And I found their command vehicle, so I'm going to push in here with all the vehicles I have, try to take out this command vehicle. Unfortunately, I might not be able to get it because I already have 160 points remaining. So that means that it's going to be difficult to take out this CV before my tanks do too much damage here and we get a total victory. I know it's somewhere back here, so I put a defense marker on it, or an attack marker to make sure that I remember. And I'm not going to send in any of the 86s because I don't know how much stingers they still have left here. There's the OAZ. Unit gets destroyed. We own 90% of the points, but since they lost all of their command units, they cannot do anything else. They had a total defeat. We lost 1 infantry unit, 2 of the cheap tanks and 1 plane. Well, they lost 13 of their infantry units and 1 of their recons. So this was a very good match. Now that's the end of one turn. So now it's turn 1 and I can start relocating my forces. This is the end of the first video. I hope you like it. If you did, please like it on YouTube and subscribe so you can also catch up my next video, which is going to be covering the next turn and the next battles. Hope you like it. If you have any comments on what I could have done differently or better, please let me know. And I look forward to reading your responses in the comments. Thanks for watching. Cheers.